Hey gang, Scott Davenport here. Thanks for taking a few minutes of your day to spend with me. I have a topic for you today that I get asked about often. I do want to take a quick moment and thank my Patreon members. It's your support that lets me do kind of a deeper dive kind of video like this one, as opposed to the quick rabbit punch types of tips. So the question I get a lot is, I have a single RAW file. Can I work on it in multiple RAW processors and they would not interfere with each other? Now, I'm going to say up front, this is not a workflow I'm a fan of. I prefer to have one RAW processor to act as my hub, act as my place that I manage my assets, do my initial processing, and then farm out different types of processing jobs to other programs. And if you've seen any of my previous videos over the past months and years, I've talked about this before. But nevertheless, I get this question a lot. So I thought I'd go through it with an example of a single RAW file, and I'm working on it with On1 and with Luminar. You could add Lightroom to the mix here as well, but to keep the video reasonably tight, we'll start with two. So I have this one single RAW file. It's on my desktop. I'll open this photo as a single image edit. I have a different video about single image edits, and what this will do is let me edit the photo. I'm not making it a full part of my Luminar library, but all of the editing changes are in the Luminar catalog. And so here's the photo. Let's let it load up here, and let's just do some basic adjustments to it so that we know we've done something to the photo. Just add a vignette. And let's add a little structure. It doesn't really matter here. Matter of fact, let's do something that's quite obvious here. How about some foliage pop just for this green down in the bottom here, right? So we're really going to push that over the top so it's obvious this was the changes that we made in Luminar. So now back over on the desktop, we see no change. It's just the single RAW file. All of those edits are sitting in Luminar's catalog. Well, now let's open up this same photo in Photo RAW and see what we do there. So here in Photo RAW on my desktop, we have the same photo. We'll notice that there's no change here. I'm not seeing anything from the edits that I did in Luminar. Why? Well, the Luminar catalog has its edits separately from the RAW file. Let's get this into the edit module. And again, do some basic things here. Let's just do AI Auto, go into Effects. Let's add dynamic contrast, and let's punch it up a little bit. Let's make it really surreal. So over the top, but we know we made this change in Photo RAW. So back out on the desktop, what do we see? The same thing, a single RAW photo, no changes whatsoever to what is on the hard disk. Now I have two different versions of the photo now. In Photo RAW, I have this very overly crunchy version of the photo with the changes tracked inside Photo RAW's database. And in Luminar, I have this different version that has the changes tracked inside Luminar's catalog. So the Luminar catalog and the On1 catalog are separate. They're not touching each other whatsoever. They just happen to use the same source material, the same raw photo. So those instructions, those editing instructions that we're giving with a non-destructive editor are kept within the walled garden of that non-destructive editor. And I could continue this with Lightroom, Capture One, and pick your favorite raw editor, and you can continue doing all of this. Now, again, as I said at the top of the video, I don't advocate this kind of workflow. I like to manage my assets in one place and then farm out editing jobs as necessary. In this scenario, if I'm back at, where would I be managing my photos here? If I have some of the photos that I've processed from a raw state in Luminar, some of the photos I've processed from a raw state in Photo RAW, and I want to see my final image, well, if I'm looking through the Finder or the Explorer on Windows, I'm not going to see my edits. I either have to export everything that I do, or I have to start firing up each program to figure out which one did I change where. So it has some complications. If you want to run this way, you can. It's technically possible. So I hope that gives folks that have been asking this question an idea of, why are you able to do this? It's because of that separation of where the editing instructions are kept. And, maybe you want to do it, maybe not. Or if you're trying to figure out which raw editor you prefer, that's a good time to play around with this type of workflow. But I'll just keep encouraging you to settle on one thing to manage your assets, and then farm out editing jobs to a variety of tools as you need to. That's going to do it for the video. Hope you've enjoyed it. My name's Scott Davenport. Happy shooting.